Vüsalə Cəfərova, head of the Turkic World Research Unit at the Center for Analysis of Economic Reforms and Communication of Azerbaijan. Welcome to News. What a great delight to be able to interview you.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a great pleasure. So the relationship between environmental limits and economic growth has been taking place for the past decades, and there's a question to what extent we could envision the model of economic growth which does not militate against our environmental climate change related objectives. What is your take on this subject?
But at the outset, if the growth is not climate resilient, if it doesn't target the sustainable growth, it will not be sustainable in the longer term. So it will be just very deceptive short-term or mid-term growth. So we can see this experience in the case of the industrial countries. And we also we're doing the research with our other colleagues for Asian research centers. We're working on both on the global South and global North dialogue to bring all these countries in commitment and really mean the commitment in order to achieve the sustainable growth, because just environmental policies, the commitment, policy agreement commitment is not just for the clean energy, clean planet per se, but it's also the only source to ensure the sustainable and long-term economic growth. In that regard, we see that we underscore the Azerbaijan government role, which is hosting this COP event here is very strong message of the country's commitment to the world. As you know, the Azerbaijan committed itself to Paris Agreement and to reduce its emissions by 2030. The decision made by in 2020, and this also will increase. Azerbaijan also one of the countries who's suffering of the climate, and by comparing 1970, Azerbaijan per decade temperature rises by 0.3 degrees Celsius, and the country is experiencing enormous drought and the unseen erratic rainfall, and the country is now investing on carbon capture and storage CCS policies. In that regard, having this event and also mobilizing. We have here universities that we had attending the plenars and other meetings where the researchers and Japanese and other researchers, how they demonstrate how the growth on longer term will suffer from the attacks, because we see that the global north are polluting and global south are suffering, paying for this with the floods and typhoons and others. So those victims understand they are the payers of the pollutions that committed in the North industrial countries.
What's about the challenge that those countries with a bigger population, growing population facing? What are the specific elements of the challenge they're facing in terms of transition to green energy?
We have seen this in Chinese experience. China is one of the, by population-wise and also in other regards, one of the growing countries, economies of the world. And we see that by the economic growth caused a very heavy burden on urban planning. So the rivers, the wastewater pollution, and the other policy, so that's why the Chinese government introduced urban planning by having responsive urban planning policies in order to reduce the mitigation for pollution, for air pollution, the water pollution, and they adopted the plan to adopt the rural development strategies in order to get the people, excess population in the big cities to the rural areas. In that regard, not to grow vertically of the cities, but to ensure the horizontal growth of the cities, which will reduce the burden on the water sources, the clean water, and also to stop the water pollution because of the sanitation and other issues, and also the disease. We have seen during pandemic how the more density population, the city is one of the cities who experienced bigger death rates and others who suffered more from pandemic.
We all understand that eco-regions do not recognize sovereign borders, and there are certain problems that we're facing in the South Caucasus, Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia, which needs a collective effort. For example, if I'm not mistaken, the glaciers have retreated by 600 meters over the past, I think, 20 years, and it led to the loss of 11 billion tons of fresh water. To what extent do you think the research to this effect could help us, these three countries in this region, to organize a collective response to those challenges?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. This South Caucasus, Azerbaijan is one of the countries who really affected by the rise of the high global temperature. And now, especially, I mentioned at the beginning how the Azerbaijan water resources constrained, and the country is now adopting, per se in Azerbaijan, is introducing water strategies in order for efficient irrigation systems, and also the water systems management and other policies in order to make the effective use of the water resources we have, which is extremely limited due to the glaciers that you mentioned in the Caucasus Mountains melted. And besides the glaciers, the country also affected by because it's all the east-west line is the Caucasian Caspian Sea, and this Caspian the sea also one of the victims of the rising high temperature, and because the country has using the Caspian Sea as a resource for its own economic growth for various reasons, but also the global warming and the lowering the Caspian Sea level also affects of its the growth policies of the country itself. And now most countries, Azerbaijan, and I would like to mention about the recent initiative of the Azerbaijan and the Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, was introduced during the COP29. They signed agreement on the construction of the cable on the seabed of the Caspian Sea, which will deliver the green energy to Europe. So in that regard, this project not only just the project per se, but also it's one of the instruments to mobilize Central Asian countries and also get the partners from Caucasus and also from Anatolia, from Europe, because this project will ensure the export of the energy via Caspian Sea and Caucasus and this Black Sea and Europe. So this project as an instrument to mobilize partners and to send strong message of Azerbaijan commitment to green energy policies and reduce the carbon emissions in that.
And you're leading the Turkic World Research Center at that global think tank based in Azerbaijan. We heard about the particular issue related to landlocked developing countries in Central Asia. To what extent your research throws light onto that subject as well?
First of all, this issue is tackled under the economic integration of Turkic states, the research that we are doing. We are working on this research study. Before we published Turkic states economy book, where we had the 35 authors from all this Turkic world, focusing on Turkic world economy, but now we are focusing on the economic integration, which is also tackles one chapter, the issue that you are raising, how to make these landlocked countries being connected of the global value chain. And 30 years back, the Azerbaijan nationwide leader Heydar Aliyev did an enormous job, not only getting the Caspian oil resources to global market, but also making landlocked Azerbaijan being part of the global value chain. And the same is now happening in the Kazakhstan's oil and gas projects, and Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan are joining them with railway. And we have to underscore the role of middle corridor because of the global tensions rising on north and south, and the importance of middle corridor is growing up. I attended the high-level meetings dedicated to middle corridor that we had yesterday, and we see that the middle corridor is also serving as energy corridor and also the transit corridor, and now we see it also acting as a green energy corridor, which will ensure to get these countries economically and trade-wise connect with East and West countries by transit line or railways. In that regard, this is the response to getting out of the landlocked trap.
Yes, indeed, yeah. And what's your general feeling about this COP29? We've been here for the past 12 days. Today is officially last day. I believe the grand closing ceremony will take place today anyway, but we haven't reached that fundamental decision, the key deliverable of this COP, which is NCUKG. What's your feeling about that? We'll be able to enhance the momentum and get there. What is your feeling about the current developments?
I think this COP sends a strong message of Azerbaijan government also being mobilizing the global world leaders by using its own regional and also global reputation. This COP29 was able to grasp important attentions and to enabling countries to make very bold decisions on that, and we are expecting the results that these negotiations achieved. And I'm sure that we had very tense negotiations going on, and since because of the global commitment, the global rise goes up, the global temperature goes up, and there is no way out. I mean, this once again, this kind of events increases importance, and we bring the researchers together, the policymakers together, the global policymakers, and also the funders to really put their hands on the stone and to deal with this issue, and raising the importance and this message to the world that we have the issue that to deal. It's not only just to solve. We are not only just making solution, but at least we have to deal with the go back to pre-industrial level of 1 degree Celsius, and in order to make our growth sustainable that you raised in your first question in terms of this sustainable growth.
Indeed. I'm so grateful to you for this enlightening conversation.
Thank you
and very much hope that later in the fullness of time we'll have further opportunities of this kind.
Thank you very much.
Indeed.
I'm very delighted.